Okay, hello. A very good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wadad Parker, and today I'm here to give a talk on Monorepos Simplified. All right, my first question to all of you, please give me a clap cheer if you have ever heard of the term monorepo. Nice, good. Now, second question. Now, please give me a cheer or a clap if you're currently using a monorepo architecture at your company. Okay, that's a lot of you. Nice. Okay, that's good. So whenever I saw any talk on monorepo, right, like one thing is that most of us have heard of the term monorepo, but many of us may not have a monorepo architecture. And one thing is that always the talks comes with some tool, all right? And we see the tool, and I personally felt that it's always a complex until I actually had to migrate to a monorepo architecture at a company last year. And then I realized something that actually a monorepo is very simpler than it seems to be. Okay, so today we are going to like simplify our monorepos. Okay, so first things first, in order to understand monorepo, you have to understand one thing that, wait a minute. Okay. You have to understand that a monorepo is not a monolithic architecture. All right, there are two different things. So what is a monolithic architecture? See, what monolithic is considered like whenever your front end and back end is into a same directory, same application, and it's deployed at the same instance, right? That is known as a monolithic architecture. So this is like a Next.js application example, which I created. So here you can see that both the front end and the back end are in the same place and they're getting deployed at once. So that is what we call as a monolithic architecture. A monorepo is like, not sorry, a microservice architecture is basically like where your front end, your back end, or your entire applications are different deployments. If you have three different deployments, right, that is a microservice architecture. And you can have them inside the same repository as different directories. It will still be count as a microservice architecture. So what exactly is a monorepo? A monorepo is basically, a collection of directories, packages, or folders. Even like they can have a connection or they can not have a connection. So that is what a monorepo is. And you can see this, and if you see this, and you'll be like, okay, like, well, that this is not a good example, right? Like, why do we want a lot of directories into one single place? That seems like a very complex thing. So I'm going to tell you about, the problems with, managing multiple repositories. All right. The first problem is that let's say you have like an app, a backend, and admin, and you are creating a feature. So you have to raise a PR both on the app side and as well as the backend side as well. If you have like an admin feature, you have to raise PR over there as well. So now if you have one feature, you have to have raised two PRs. Those two PRs needs to be reviewed. Like one cannot be merged until the second is merged together. And if you want to revert something, you're going to revert both together. This is like a circus going on over here just because you have like multiple PRs. Second thing is that lack of collaboration. All right, if you're a full stack engineer, fine, you get access to both the repositories. But let's say you're only like a front end engineer or a back end engineer. What do? Like you don't have access to the backend repository as a front end engineer. You cannot read the code. Like obviously, like you will not open VS Code and read the code. And if you want to fix something, you have to be dependent on the other team because you will not have access to that repository and you will not be able to raise a PR. The third thing is that duplicate code. Lots of duplicate code is going to be there. Like if I have an app and an admin, I will have the same component, the same config, the same types, same everything. So that's a lot of deduplication going on. And finally, right, on this age of AI that we are here, AI context is like the very crucial thing right now, which affects the performance. So like NX is a monorepo tool. They did a like calculation. Okay, when they have the monorepo, right, their Claude session was able to do it within 30 minutes versus something like they have multiple repositories. It took like 2 hours. So you can already see, right, that level, the context matters over there, and like the token, the cost, etc., etc. So all of that matters much more. So when we are going to the age of AI right now, it has become like a very mandatory that you have to migrate to a monorepo. All right. Now, why did we migrate to Monorepo? AI context was like a very big reason, but apart from that, also there was an even bigger reason, and that's okay. Like we had like an two applications. We have an app and we have an admin. Okay. One day, my founder came up to me and he told me, okay. Then he like my founder, right? He asked me, okay, Wadad, we want something to do. We want like an page from an app all the way into the admin so that I can monitor how the users are going to be. All right. So my founder was in founder mode and he asked me that he wants to create a page exactly what is there in the app into the admin. So I was like, fine, like being in a startup, I did this most simplest thing. I copied everything from the app on the page and pasted in the admin, and I called it a day. And he was also happy. I was also happy. Until what happened, like issues started coming up. Now, whenever he saw some issue on the admin side, he raised a concern, and we raised a PR both for the admin and the app. We are raising two PRs. And now, since app is the user facing and admin is not user facing, so we used to prioritize bug fixes or feature enhancements on the app side, and we forgot to do it on the admin side. Sooner or later, now that everything piled up, and now admin had like nothing, it was not consistent with the app. All right, and we used to like have worries like, okay, is this implemented in the app side? Is it not implemented? So finally, he came up to me and said that, okay, Wadad, I just want one thing from you. I want that whatever we have in the app, there has to be exactly same as the admin. Like I want to see exactly what the user is facing, same exact code. So his demand of same exact code, it can be achieved by two ways. All right. One thing was that I can create an npm package, publish it, and then import it. But that doesn't make sense because I don't have to use it publicly. It's our own code which I have to use in the same repository. So then that's how we came to solution Monorepo. All right. Now I'm going to tell you how to like simplify how make a monorepo. Like you can migrate your monorepo starting from Monday, and its only concept is of workspace. This is like npm workspaces. So one big myth everyone has when they have to migrate to monorepo is that you have to use like pnpm. Even I had that misconception. I don't know where it came from, but actually npm also supports workspaces. So now what is workspace? A workspace is basically like you say that you combine your app, UI, or admin. All right, you combine these three directories and say that these three are going to be one workspace. When they are in one workspace, they share the dependencies. So let's say like app has like React 18, React 19, and admin has React 18. So what are you going to do? You cannot share components between them. Okay, that's going to be like version hell, right? So in order for dependencies to be consistent across the directories, you have to have a workspace so that it manages like duplicate packaging and etc. All right. Next up, right? Whenever you have a workspace, right, you do your npm install everything inside the root of the for like code base. Okay, you do not go into that app and then you do the npm install. That's not how it works. Okay, that is one thing that you have to be careful for. Next up, all right, this is like an example monorepo I have created. Like, okay, we have like admin, app, backend, the node modules, packages, and UI. And you can see that there is a package JSON and there's a TS config. So you're going to create a base over here, and this is you're going to build on top of it. Now this is like a folder structure for app and admin. This is a simple white application. We have like package JSON, we have white config, we have main app, etc. This is same. But inside the package, there is a little change. Okay, if you can see over here, the name, we have to give a name in the package, and the name can be like the convention is basically @ your company name and slash what's the directory name. So when you give the name, right, and then you have to say like private is equal to true, so that npm does not publish your entire directory as an npm package when it's like private. And after that, like you have dependencies. So these dependencies, you have to tell like what dependencies is required. Same the React, and then we have dev dependencies. So the name is very important over here. And then we have the UI and the packages folder. So UI, as you can see, right, UI is where the components will be. For packages, basically it's an industry standard where packages contain maybe types or your config or anything, some library that you want to be used, that is going to be there in the packages. And you can see we have like the name over there, and we also have the exports. The export basically means that instead of going and importing from particular file, you just import from that directory name itself. So next time we have the UI. Now in the UI, right, you're going to see like the name is like @monorepo/UI. And over here, you're going to see something like peer dependencies. So peer dependencies are not same as the dependencies, and like they are very important. So if we have like a UI, like UI package where all your components are present, right? So what is going to be used? It's going to be imported both in your app and admin. So for that, we have peer dependencies. And then we also have dev dependencies. So what are all three of these? Like, what do they mean? So dependencies are your normal like dependencies, the node modules which they appear, those are dependencies. Dev dependencies are basically like they also appear in the node modules, but when your bundler builds the final JavaScript file, it will not be included inside of that. Finally, peer dependencies. Peer dependencies, that these dependencies will not appear in the node modules. These basically say that you are saying that this particular package or directory is going to be imported into the app application. So ensure that like if app is importing from UI, app needs to add these peer dependencies on these versions. So this is just like connection or like making sure that, okay, the version is trying to be upheld. Okay, next up, I like to give you all a very heads up. Like this is what challenge that I faced. And like this is like a sucker punch to me. So like migration for a monorepo truly begins from your UI components. So what I've seen is that UI components sometimes is this is the way that they are written, okay? You have data fetching inside the component and then you display it. Especially if you're using React query, like React query makes it very easy that you use your data fetching inside the component. But I like to tell you that this is not an ideal way to do your design your components. You have to use something like, you have to make a differentiation between presentational components and system components. So what is the difference between them? So a presentational component basically is just a pure UI component. Whatever the props is passed to it, it will just display what it has. So it's a pure component. You do not import any logic, no context, no library, no nothing. You're just going to purely like display whatever is passed to the props. That's all. And next up, right? If you have a hooks, right? Like you need to create a hook out of your logic. As in, if you're fetching something, you have to make it over there in the hooks. Even if you're using React query, make it in a separate hook and then call it over there. And after that, then you have the system component. A system component is basically used inside your main app, main app, main admin, where you're going to like call the UI, the presentational component, and then display it over here. Vicky, you can then see that on the line one, I'm importing this component from the Monorepo UI, and then I'm importing the hooks from the application itself. And you can see all that code that we had written, it has become only this much, right? So beautiful, so elegant, just looking like a wow. So then my founder was very happy that finally we achieved our UI components, the app and admin, and he was like able to see whatever the user was facing. And with that, I was able to keep my job. But one thing that like engineers have a lot of problem with is that if everything, like all the directories are inside the same repository, then like, engineers from another team will go ahead and change something in my code and everybody hates that, right? So for that, I have a really interesting feature for you. Like this is the GitHub code owners. It's a very like unique feature. Basically what you do is that in your .github directory, you create a file known as code owners. No extension, just code owners. And inside that, if you have organizations in your GitHub, right, you can go ahead and assign that this particular directory belongs to this particular team. Or let's say for app, we have front-end team. For the UI, we have the design team. For backend, we have this. Then the CI/CD, we have DevOps team. So what happens is that now whenever somebody like raises a PR, for anyone from the front-end team is raising a PR for the backend team, it must be reviewed by that particular person or someone from the team. Then only that PR can be merged in. All right. So this ensures that like if there is some small feature that your front-end team can do, especially with AI now, they are not like held up or bottlenecked. It will really increase your code collaboration. Okay, next up, you will be saying that, okay, well, I don't have time to, take all the repositories, put it inside the one, put the migration, I cannot do it. So at that time, what you can do is that you can use something called as a synthetic monorepos. It's like a monorepo tool will allow you to use synthetic monorepo. Basically, like if you have 5 repositories, those 5 repositories can be treated as like directories inside a single repo using a monorepo tool. And that's what I'm telling you, okay? A monorepo, you do not require to use any tool to create a monorepo. You can simply do it with just the npm which I showed. But then when are we supposed to like use for something to use like this, when are we supposed to use a monorepo tool? All right. For that, right, there are like a lot of use cases that you can read on. NX is like one monorepo tool. And then not just NX, like we have turbo repo, we have like so many tools which support monorepo, right? Like we have like local caching. So their ideology is that, let's say you have like a DevOps CI/CD. If you are building or compiling your front-end part of the application, you do not need to compile everything. And like if someone has raised a PR, like person wasn't raised a PR and person 2 has also raised a PR, why do we need to build the entire application? Okay, we just need to build the part which was changed. So you are able to do that using tools like this. So tools like this are like somewhat complex to use, as in not that complex, but it requires some learning curve, and you can always use it and on a get-in basis. All right. Any questions?